and we'll open this and type some credentials. I'll type the agenda for today and then we'll start, okay? Merging the data silos, creating semantic layer, and we'll cover what's, how's, nuances, what's next. Okay, this should be on the screen and it should work. Cool. Let me keep the chat open as well. Have you guys, meanwhile, other folks are joining, I'll keep asking a few of the questions, right? So, have you guys heard about or used semantic layer as a concept in the past? Anyone in the chat? Like, did you anytime in the past created this layer? Or you are like just hearing it for the first time? First time, good to know. What about semantic models? Have you guys worked on semantic models? Is that the concept you guys are aware of or no? Semantic model I have worked. Cool. There is a difference between semantic model and semantic layer, and I will be covering that today also. Okay, so that should be fine. Let's do one thing. I'll start recording and then I'll begin the session. Okay, it's 6:05, so should be fine. So, guys, the agenda for today is this is a topic that I wanted to cover. This is one of the free masterclass that I run, and the topic is merging the data silos. And to merge the data silos, you need something called quote unquote semantic layer, right? So I'll cover how do we do that, what's the future also. Okay. In case you are not aware, this is part of few other masterclasses that I have been running. So if this is your first masterclass, feel free to watch the recording of the previous masterclasses from here. The link is datadiscourse.in/free masterclasses. And we do have a couple of more planned for the next weekends also. You can just find the topics from here. If anyone of this topic intrigues you, you can join that. Okay. These masterclasses are part of the bigger cohort that I teach. That is, how do you become a data solutions architect? 70 plus hours of course, covers 20 plus tools. And if you like the masterclasses, if you want to learn more, because masterclasses are of just 1 hour, I just give you overview of what's happening in the world. And if you want to participate that in more depth, if you want to know the technicalities ins and outs, you have to participate in this course. So feel free to enroll to that also. Okay. So these were the logistics part. Now I'll come to topic that what exactly is semantic layer? Like why do you need it? What tool do you need it? And what do you need to do in the terms of upskilling if you want to be a maybe semantic modeler or semantic layer modeler, right? Before beginning anything, right, first question should be, hey, what is semantic layer? And once I explain all these things, right, the conclusion is going to be very solid that, hey, within next 1 to 2 years, every tool is trying to break through the semantic layer. Everyone wants a pie of semantic layer in their tool. Okay, I'll try to cover that also. But first things first, what is semantic layer? Or maybe I'll start with more generic question, what is a semantic model also, right? I'll give you one example and this will make concept clear to you. Let's say you have three tables. Okay. Let's say we have fact sales and you had one table called dim products. Okay. And you had, let's say, one more table in the backend. Let's say you are maintaining some warehouse in your backend. The warehouse could be Snowflake, could be Databricks, anything works. And let's say this is dim geographies. Okay. These are three tables present in your backend. Dim means dimension, fact means fact data, factual data. Now, let's say you have just these three tables, interconnected tables are not present. These are like just plain simple tables present. There is no relationship between them because this is, let's say, the Databricks layer, okay, or Snowflake layer. you call it as a gold layer also, right? Whenever you work in a company, you typically have three layers of your data. One is bronze. You take the data from bronze layer, you move it to silver layer, and then you move it to gold layer, right? So I'll tag it as bronze, silver, and gold, right? And typically how the pattern works is you take the gold layer and you connect it to the BI tools, right? And then you build the dashboards. The BI tool, you build two things. One is semantic layer, or you call it semantic model. And the second thing which you build in BI tools is report. I'll come to this, that why do you need to build a semantic layer or semantic model if the goal layer is already present? Okay. Now let's say both these tables are present, three tables are present in your goal layer. And now you don't have a semantic layer, okay? Or you don't have a semantic model. Typically you build tables because you want to answer some of the questions, right? What are those questions? Maybe you want to see what is the total sales for India, maybe, for example, right? Now you want one column from this table, that is sales, and you want one column for this table, that is geographies, right? To get column from both the tables, you need to do the join of the tables, right? Now if there is no join present already, let's say these are just three tables, to get the answer of this question, what is the sales of India, the workflow or the tech or the queries which you will need to write or which your user will need to write is he'll need to write this query. Maybe for example, select country, comma, sum of sales from maybe fact sales. Yeah, should work. From maybe I'll do this dim geographies left join fact sales, and then I'll do where India, right? Again, just a white paper query, a bold query. I'm not going to the logic part or to the syntax part, but this is the query which some person will need to write, and then they'll get the answer, right? Perfectly fine. This will give them maybe 10 million. Now let's say some other person is coming and he wants the answer of what is the sales for maybe Canada. He'll need to take the query again and write the query again and do all the condition which they are writing in joins. They'll need to write everything again. They'll need to write the select statement again, and they'll need to change the filter again. And they'll write, instead of India, they'll write Canada, right? Now let's say instead of this, they want some answer of maybe, hey, what is the sales of India for maybe product one? If they change the question, they will need to change the query as well. Instead of this query, now they want the products also. So this query will become product, and they need to the join with the products also. Right? Now the thing I'm trying to tell you is, as the questions grow in your company, the number of queries which your user will be writing will increase. The effort to write this query is humongous. Every time you want to have some answer, you will need to do the joining, you will need to do the filtering conditions, you will need to add statements in the select statement, for example. This was the condition, this was how the tech was working, and this is how the data ecosystem was working before the BI tools or before semantic layers came into the market. Okay, but this was a problem because not everyone can write damn big SQL or complicated SQL. The answer to this problem, the problem is, for each question I will need to write my query, SQL query. If the answer is present in only one table, I will not need to join, but if the answer is present in multiple tables, if there is a calculation involved, I'll need to incorporate all those things in my SQL query to solve this problem. That, hey, I want to write logic once and repeat it everywhere. The concept of semantic layer came. Semantic layer says that every time don't write the joining conditions in your SQL queries. Do it only once. Now in semantic layer, instead of these as independent tables with just base columns and base conditions, what we do is we take all these tables and we define the joining conditions once and we just forgets it. So these tables, the condition will be defined only once. Even the calculations. Now, for example, यहाँ पे we were just doing sum of sales, right? Just imagine if there was a formula of maybe profit percent, profit margins, right? That will be sales minus cost. So the logic or the syntax of your KPIs will be increasing as like the complexity will increase if the syntax is getting increased, right? If you increase the complexity, the syntax will increase, right? Now, don't write the syntax again and again. That was the problem, because if one person is writing 5 lines of code to find, I'll calculate one KPI, if there are 100 people, everyone will need to write that code. And this was also solved in this concept of semantic layer, that whatever you need to write, whatever KPI you want to create, don't create them at a SQL layer. Give it to me. Give it to me means give it to semantic layer and write it only once. Now, if I wanted to write, let's say, sales, I will write sales is equal to maybe sum of sales or something like that, right? Now, I defined it only once. Once I defined it, once this entire semantic layer is defined, the problems which used to exist before this layer was not present are solved, because now if user wants maybe, hey, give me countries sales of each country, right? Join is already defined. They will just take the country column from here, they will take the sales column from here, and then they'll get the answer. Same thing for the KPIs also. If you had a very lengthy KPI, you don't need to write every single time, right? This is the beauty of BI tools. So semantic layer means a layer where you define three things. One is the number of tables. Second is how are those tables related to each other. Third thing is what KPIs or calculations you want to do on top of your data. So these are the only three things at its core that define the semantic layer. Okay. So if I write it here, tables, KPIs, and then relationships. Okay. Now again, we can keep double tapping these ones. For example, tables could be of two types. One could be dimensional table, other could be factual tables. Even KPIs can be defined or categorized into multiple categories. Maybe one could be some KPIs. If you are not understanding, maybe write it calculations. Okay, calculations slash KPIs. Now, few calculations could be at a row level. Few could be at aggregation level. And relationships means how our tables relate to each other, right? Could be left, right, outer, and inner joins, right? Now, if you know these three things, if you define these things for a specific set of tables, you have a semantic model, right? Or you have a semantic layer. Both these terms, semantic model and semantic layer, are very adjacent to each other. They are sometimes used as synonyms. Is it true? Yes and no. I'll give you a few differences also, which not a lot of people realize, but there is a difference between both of them. Okay. This is the first point, that what is semantic layer. Now, why do you need semantic layer? I slightly touched this point, right? Because if you don't have a semantic layer, if you want to find maybe revenue, let's say, maybe I double tap on this point, and why do you need it, right? Let's say this fact sales table. Let's say this table had columns called sales, discount, status. Okay, status of transactions. Now, let's say sales was 10. This example I took in last time also, but again, I'll take the leverage of using it again. So this discount you gave, let's say, was 2, and then status was successful, right? Now what I'll do is I will take a copy of this and inflate for 3 times. Should work. And let's say second row has sales of 20. I'll keep increasing my discounts also. And let's say one of the row was refunded. Okay. Let's say this was the data present in your fact table. Now you don't have any semantic layer. Okay. If I ask you, give me maybe total revenue of a company. Okay. I'm asking you to give me revenue. How will you do it? One way would be you have a sales column, right? You will do the sum of sales. That means that is 60. So we'll say my sum revenue is 60, right? But is that right? Because few of the state transactions have been refunded also. That means your revenue formula is not simply, hey, do some of sales. It's not the case, right? Second case could be your sum of sales logic or revenue logic could be, I want to find total sales, but only for transactions that has been successful, right? So that means I will not include this. That means the revenue is 40, right? So now the formula which I'm saying is sum of sales, but filter the table where status is equal to successful, right? This could be your one logic. Third logic could be maybe you're just increasing the complexity in your KPI. That there is a discount column also, but if you have done a sales of 10 rupees and you gave a discount of 2, revenue should be excluding discount, right? So your logic could be, hey, instead of taking 10, I'll do 10 minus 2 plus 20 minus 4 plus 30 minus 6, right? So give me a second. 8 plus 16 plus 24, right? So I get 48. Now I'm saying, no, should not be the case. 30, 40, 50, 60. What did I do wrong? Yes, because I have to exclude refunded also, right? Now, if I'm excluding the discount from the sales, I'm getting 48. Now I will exclude the refunded also. I'm getting 44. Something is not right. Sum of sales was 30, 40, 50, 60. I excluded the 20, that is 40. Makes, oh yes, I think this is wrong. I should exclude sales, that is 28, right? Now, this could be one logic of your revenue. Give me a second, 28. And the logic is that I'm taking sum of sales, but I'm filtering my sum of sales first based on my condition that it should only be of filtering the condition for the successful columns, and then I'll do sales minus discount, right? Again, if you're doing it in Power BI, you will write a calculator, right? I'm not talking about syntax here. I'm not teaching you syntax, but I'm just telling you that one KPI can go as complex as the requirement goes. Now, if you don't have a standardized definition of revenue defined, some people will come and write the condition of this. Some people will write and try to find the answer with this logic. Some people will try to find the answer of this logic, and all of them will have a different answer for revenue. This is how, by the way, even today, a lot of errors come into the market, right? In the data ecosystem. To reduce these kind of issues that, hey, define once, take it as a source of truth, and this should be used everywhere. Semantic layer was declared, because what do you do in semantic layer? I told you, right? You define your calculation. That means you will write your revenue logic just once, and then you will use it everywhere. Okay. So it's always about, you take tables, you define it, you define the relationship between them, and then you get KPIs on top of it, so that not everyone is trying to guess the KPI and not everyone is using different logic for the same. Okay. This solves my data silos also, because if everyone was working in a silo, some person will report 40, 60 as a revenue, some person will report 40 as a revenue, some person will reveal 28. Then what is true for you, right? So this was more or less the logic that, hey, why do we need the semantic model or semantic layer logic? Now, of course, by the way, these topics which I told you that, hey, what defines semantic layer? As of now, I told you three topics, right? That there are three factors that define or that are the function of semantic layer, but there can be more also. Again, I'm not going into the nitty-gritties. For example, there could be thing like, hey, who access control, right? Who controls my semantic layer? That, am I allowing all my users to see the logic, to change the logic, or I just want to show the India numbers to Indian peoples, right? Canadian numbers to Canadian peoples. So that also can be integrated into this. So there could be multiple factors, but on the overall bigger picture level, just define these three. Okay. Now, this was the first reason why do you need it. The second reason is because everyone wants nowadays to use their agents or maybe their co-pilots, right? If they don't have this layer, the semantic layer, the agents will sit on top of the Databricks and Snowflake. Okay. Now think, if your AI is working here and you don't have the semantic layer defined here, this is going to hallucinate. Why? Because of these reason only. When AI, you will ask AI, when your user will ask AI, what is revenue? It is impossible for Snowflake and Databricks to tell what is revenue because it's nowhere defined. There is no revenue, right? It will try to guess. And that's why if you don't have semantic layer, your AI will fail. Okay. And this is the reason, by the way. As of now, by the way, if you do not understand the picture of semantic layer, this is semantic layer, and this is only possible, or this was only possible in the BI tools. Okay, that means in Power BI, you create something called semantic model. Think of it as a semantic layer, and you can do it in Tableau also, right? So till 2025, 2026, the semantic layer was possible only in the BI tools. But then the AI came, right? When AI came, everyone wanted to find the answers through the agents. Now, it was very easy for a BI agent to integrate the AI and get the answers. Why? Because semantic layer is already present here. Now, if I ask my AI that give me revenue, it will very easily give me because your logic of revenue is already defined in the BI tool. That means they were winning the race of semantic layers. This was the finding of all the tools, Databricks and Snowflake also, that if we keep letting the BI tools create the semantic layer, the AI race we are going to lose. Okay. Due to this, every tool in today's gen market has launched a feature to create semantic layer in their own tool. So before 1 or 2 years, it was only possible in BI tools, but now everyone wants to find answers, and answers are always based on context. Because see, AI works on only two things, right? You need context and you need compute, right? Compute, again, you can get it and call it reasoning also. You can get it from any LLM, right? Where is the context sitting? All the business context sits inside the semantic models. So that's why nowadays everyone wants to get a pie of semantic layer. Each tool will be at a database level, tool could be at a ETL level, tool could be at a data warehouse level. Everyone now is saying don't use BI tool. BI tools are saying don't use the data warehousing tool to create semantic layer, create it in us, because whoever controls semantic layer controls the AI, because there is no other way to get the context of business. Okay. Now, in again, now maybe I'll come to that. In today's day and age, in which tools is it possible to create semantic layer? Okay. In all the BI tools, you can create it in Tableau, in Power BI, in maybe think of any tool, maybe in Looker also. Right? Looker is a tool of Google and they have the LookML, right? But if you move one step back, if you move to data warehouses also, now data warehouses are also allowing you to create semantic layer. Think of Snowflake. Snowflake launched a feature called semantic views. That is nothing but a way to create the semantic model or semantic layer inside Snowflake. Think of Databricks. Databricks launched something called metrics views that works on Unity catalog. And their motto is this, that hey, don't create semantic model in BI tool, create it inside me. Think of maybe Google BigQuery. They have LookML. They are saying don't create it in Power BI or Tableau, create a semantic layer inside me. This was data warehousing layer. Go one layer back, that's ETL layer. Even the ETL tools are saying don't go to warehouse or the BI tool to create semantic layer, create it inside us. That for means, like for example, the biggest ETL tool right now in today's day and age is DBT, right? DBT Labs. They also launched something called metric flow. Okay. Their definition was, hey, define a file, that is YAML file. In that file, create a semantic layer, and you don't need to go anywhere else to create it. Okay. So the trend where the industry is moving is AI has solved the reasoning part. Reasoning is solved, but context is still not solved, right? Where is the context? Now everyone is trying to own a piece of context. Whoever has a context, the chatbot, conversational AI, conversational BA part will be solved. My bad. Give me a second. My throat is not supporting me. Meanwhile, I'll check the chat also. If you have any question, I'll take it up. Hey Sanjay. Hey Pratmesh. Hey Juma. Hey Abhishek. Okay. So I was saying that now everyone wants to control this semantic layer. Nowadays, people ask me that, hey Sahil, will BI survive or not in this AI and BI era? Right? Or will data analytics survive or not? What is BI? What is data analytics, right? You are always trying to help business take decisions, right? Okay. Now, how do you help them take decision? You create reports for them. In this report, they see the outliers, they see the numbers, and then they take the decision, right? So see the reports to find insights, right? Now, to see a report, we first create model and then we create a report. Okay. Now, what is happening is the end goal of everything is to take decision, right? To take decision, people generally do not need a report. They need insights, right? So I'm just going from bottom to top. To get insights, I just need a model. Think of model as semantic layer. To be very frank, I don't need a report. And this is the trend that is very popular nowadays. That hey, why are you creating a report for me? Create a centralized, governed, well-documented data model for me. I will use a chatbot to ask questions and get insights. I don't want the report. So hot take of almost every thought veteran would nowadays is even though reporting is going to lose their shine, okay, semantic modeling is here to survive. And if let's say nowadays people were giving, let's say, 10 companies were maintaining the common centralized semantic layer, the number of people who are creating the semantic layers and the number of companies who are trying to create a semantic layer is going to increase. So focus is shifting from reporting layer to semantic layer. Okay. Semantic layer is here to stay. Who will create it is first question. Which tool will own the bigger pie is second question. That is still not solved yet. Okay. So who creates it and in which tool it is created? Okay. The question of who creates it depends. What are the options, by the way? Who can create? Either a data engineer can create it or a data analyst can create it. Both of them have pros and cons, right? For example, data engineers, they are more technical people, but in semantic layer, we need the business logic also, right? So their pro or plus point is they know how to code. And semantic layer creation ideally is a code only, right? Whenever you do it in Power BI and Tableau, that is not a code. But when you build a semantic layer in tools like Snowflake, in tools like maybe Databricks, that's code. You build it in either DDL language or a YAML language, right? Their plus point DE is they know how to code. They can cook the semantic layer very easily. Then their negative point is they don't know business. And when you create a semantic layer, you have to add business layer, business context into semantic layer. But is business context? The KPIs, the calculation, when you sit with the stakeholders, you try to understand the problems and then you integrate it inside your pipelines, inside your layer, right? So that's the one part that either they will control it. Other option is data analyst will control it. The pros and cons exist. The pros is they understand business very well. And due to this also nowadays a lot of focus is shifting that people are saying if you are a data analyst, focus on a business domain a lot because since that is your forte, right, you have to make sure that that remains your forte throughout the week, throughout the age, right? For example, if you work in, let's say, supply chain, if you work in inventory management systems, right, so you should know what is on hand inventory, you should know what is stock in hand, you should know what is out of stock. How do you write that KPI? That's the plus point of data analyst, that they know the business context. That's why it's easy for them to learn the tech part to build a semantic layer. The negative of data analyst is Right now, they are, at least in India, the people who create semantic layer, they're creating only by clicks and drops, by Tableau and Power BI. They don't know how to code, and they interact very less with tools like Snowflake and Databricks. That's why technically it's not in their favor. Okay, but who will own it in the future? Still debatable. If the semantic layer, again, companies are yet to decide where they will keep the centralized semantic layers. But if it's going to be surviving inside the BI tools, for example, it is very obvious that data analysts will need to take it, right? But the way of creating the semantic layer could change. Right now, you open the Power BI report, you click and drop the tables to get semantic layer. But in future, it might move to, hey, directly write it in the YAML files. For example, Power BI introduced a concept called TMDL. The whole purpose is this only, that, hey, don't use clicks and buttons, right? Because generally we are moving towards the prompt engineering or prompt based development, right? And clicks can't be happening on the prompts. That is first point, right? So who will do it? It's still debatable. If it's BI tool, analysts will do it. It's very sure. If it's like, if it's data engineer, again, they know code well, they could master it. But again, business context is missing there also, right? So it's still a shady area, that in which layer it's going to be there and what way could be there, right? The second question is, in which tool it's going to be created. Still a very shady area for now. No one has decided yet, but in today's day and age, the semantic layers are logged inside your BI tools. It's either inside Power BI or inside Tableau. But will it stay like that? Debatable. Okay. Because of course, BI tools are losing their shine, right? No one wants to nowadays use a report, right? They want just the answers, because even the BI is shifting to something called DI. What is BI? BI is business intelligence. But is DI? DI is an intelligence that, hey, I don't want to see the report. Give me the decision. Right. So that's one of the shift that is happening. I have something in the chat. Hello. Hi, Juma. Okay. So, hi, Sorin. So, one piece that, hey, I need to own the semantic layer, and for that, could be using different tools for that. Right now, some of you would have used Tableau and Power BI before creating semantic layer, right? I'll give you a very small glimpse of how do you create semantic layer by code, maybe inside Snowflake. Okay, I can show you by the maybe Databricks also, maybe LookML also, right? The process more or less same, because I told you in the start, right? What do you need to create a semantic layer? You need tables, you need relationships, and you need KPIs. If you have this information, you can create semantic layer in any tool. Okay, you can create it in BI tool. In BI tool, the experience of creating semantic layer changes, right? If you are creating in BI tool, as of now, you have both the options. You have GUI option, means drag the tables created, or you have the code option also. That means you have TMDL, you have XML for that. If you work in data warehouses to create the semantic layers, you mostly have YAML files or DDL language, right? I'll give you a very brief glimpse of Snowflake. How do you create semantic layer in Snowflake? Because again, people don't have a lot of experience in that, right? Uh, I'll do one thing. I'll need to log in. Am I already logged in? Wait. Yes, I am. So I'll show you one thing here. I'll write SL, and is the semantic layer responsibility of BI team or D team? That's what Ashwat. It's still, if it's going to be only in the BI world, it's of course a responsibility of the analytics team. But if it's going to moving towards the ETL tool or towards the warehousing tools, then the responsibilities are going to be very gray, because then these layers are owned by data engineering team, right? Then the existential crisis of, hey, what do analysts do is going to be very bigger, right? I'll come to the point of today's day and age also. Like right now, the semantic layers are owned by data analysts, but companies are still worried that they have a lot of semantic models, right? So that's again a question. I'll come to the problems which exist today because of semantic layer also. But if it's in today's day and age, it's still a responsibility of BI team to create a semantic layer. The data engineering team starts at goal layer. After the goal layer, you get something called semantic layer, and that's the responsibility of data analyst as of now. Okay. Now I was telling you that how do you create a semantic layer? In Snowflake, it's quite simple. For example, how do you create a table in Snowflake? Again, plain simple SQL, right? You write something called create or replace table. In a similar fashion, Snowflake allows you to create a semantic layer also by writing create or replace semantic view. They call it view, quote unquote. Even Databricks is calling it a view. They call it metrics view. Snowflake calls it semantic view. The concept remains same. So give me some time. I'll write some code. Maybe I'll switch to the role first. Account admin. Uh, so I'll zoom it so that it's visible to you guys. And then I'll explain you what I'm doing. Okay. So how do I zoom the code part here? Okay, it's fine. I'll first write the code and then I'll run it. It's entirely fine. So I'll do one thing. I'll create some database, some schema, so that I can create a semantic layer in that specific database and schema. Okay, so that you get to know that it's not only BI tools that are trying to control the semantic layer. Nowadays, it's the warehousing tools. Okay, create database. Maybe analytics one. Okay, DB. I'll create this as a database. I will create a schema also. So schema, it should be, I think I'll name it semantic. So it should be inside this database and I'll call it semantic. Okay, this is my schema that will hold my semantic layer. This should work. I will now switch to this schema. I'll use my use keyword for that. I'll switch to some warehouse also. I need to consume some warehouse to do the compute. I think compute VH should be fine. And let me run these commands. If I'm not wrong with the syntax, this will work perfect. Now I have a database called analytics1db. I have a schema also, and I will create my semantic layer here. Okay. When you define semantic layers, by the way, it's very important that you define who is creating it, because if other person has any question, they can reach out to you directly. Snowflake, almost every tool nowadays allow you to do that. Okay, that you can define contacts, and if anyone has any question regarding the semantic layer, they can contact you. So you just do contact here and create contact, and then you can write maybe data stewards or something of that kind. So let's say this is the team who is responsible. I think it should be this team, that, hey, this is the team who is responsible for creating my semantic layers. So this will remain constant for the semantic layer. Let's say whatever I'm creating in the bottom. But here's the fun part, that creation of semantic layer. So creating SL. Okay. Syntax, again, very easy. Okay, create or replace. Instead of a table or a view, you write semantic view. Okay, semantic. No, I think it's separate. Yes. Now inside create or replace, whatever I was telling you, that there are some building blocks of a semantic layer, you define them as a function. That means for semantic layer to exist, you need to first define what tables should be part of that semantic layer, right? So that you define with the help of tables function. Tables. Then you will define, for example, you need facts, you need relationships. So I'll define my relationships here. PION, this should work. I'll define my facts here. I'll tell you what fact is, but yeah, define something, it's fact here. You define your dimensions here. So dimensions will go here. Can I define it? I can define metrics also. So right now I'll just write the syntax and then I'll try to tell you what does this mean also. Okay. So these are the basic building blocks of a semantic layer inside Snowflake. Okay. I'll define my metrics layer here. So it should be metrics. I think these should be fine. Now, I think I did an oopsie that I deleted my create or replace. Create or replace semantic. Just a second. Semantic view, name it ABC as, and should work. Okay, so this is the syntax to create a semantic layer. What do you define? We define the tables. How are those tables related to each other? The facts and the dimensions. The facts means whatever are the row level calculations, the numerical columns, whatever the numerical columns you need, you define it in the facts. Dimension mean how do you want to split or see the data at what level, at what granularity, you define that here, means the non-factual factual columns. And the metrics mean what are the aggregations, what are the KPIs, the totals, the averages, the mins and the max, those are defined in the metrics layer. If you populate this data, you have a semantic layer. Now the Snowflake's claim is, hey, why do you need Power BI then? You can directly create the semantic layer here, right? Maybe I'll see the time, and if time allows, okay, we have bit of a time, so I'll try to populate this, okay? So let's do one thing. Let's try to define tables. So what table should we include in our uh, semantic view? So Snowflake by default gives you some pre-populated databases. If in case you do not know, that's THCP database. So if you go to database, and by the way, Snowflake has a free trial, right? So you don't need to worry about, hey, if you don't have a trial or something, you can go to Snowflake sample data. Inside you will get TPCH, right? That, hey, I have few of data and then you can use it free of cost, right? They have the customers, the line items, the orders, that kind of tables you already get pre-populated, right? So if you see here, you see you have 8 tables: customer, line item, nation, orders, part sub, region, supplier, right? You have different schemas. You have SF1, SF10, SF100, SF1000. You get the schema in every Snowflake account. SF1s mean, hey, the number of rows which are present here will remain like that. 10 means how many number of rows are here, they will be multiplied by the factor of 10. 1000 means they will be multiplied by the factor of 1008. So if you want to play with the very big data, play with this schema. Otherwise, the first schema is perfectly fine. Okay, so we'll use these tables only, maybe the SF1, to build our semantic layer. Okay, the tables, which table do you want? Maybe I should pick orders. I'll define that, hey, I need my orders table in my semantic layer, and then you write where is this orders table present, right? It's present in Snowflake sample data database in TPCH SF1 schema, and then write the name of a table. Okay, so Snowflake sample, second, data dot tpch sf1 dot orders. Okay, this is how you define that you want to include this table inside your semantic layer. You can define some more parameters also if you want. For example, you can define the primary keys, that, hey, which column is a primary key of this table, because you will also try to link this or create a relationship between this table and the other table. So for that, you can define the primary keys also. So you can define the primary keys, and you can write, again, give your table any name you want. Maybe you want to have order key, for example. Okay, so you define something called order key here. You can also define synonyms. Whenever you work with AI agents, you already know that you can call it orders table. Other people can call it maybe sales orders table. So you can define your synonyms also. So with synonyms, and I can give it be sales orders, right? You can also define the comments, that, hey, what is this table? What is the meaning of this table? When do you use it? Okay, comments, and you define it. Use this to find the transactions at order level. Okay, this is how you include a table inside your semantic layer. Again, if you have used any BI tool in the past, this is very similar to the buttons that you click. You drag, you select on get data, you select base schema, you select a table, and you rename it. That's present here. When you have to create a relationship, you define the join that happens here. In all the BI tools nowadays, you can define the synonyms and the description that you're defining here. It means whatever you do in a BI tool to create a model, you can do here. Okay, This is also double tapping on very hot take that I keep taking, that hey, the GUI is going to be dead. Everyone is moving towards the code because it's easy for agents to interact with the code, right? Told you in the last class that nowadays products are not built for humans. Products are built for the agents, okay, because they are going to be the users. Okay, so I hope this part is clear. Again, keep adding more and more tables. These tables, by the way, are called the logical tables. Okay, these are not the physical table, because physical tables are these. These are the physical tables. You import them. Think of it as importing. You are using that table. You are referencing that table. You can call it anything here. So that's why every entity or a table that is used inside a semantic layer is called a logical table. Okay, this is one table. You can define multiple tables if you want. Okay, for example, if I give comma here, I can define another table also. Maybe I should do it. So maybe I'll do one for line items. Line items. I should have line item here. So that is line item, and then you can define whatever is the column which is primary key here. I can't recall what is there, so I'll preview the data. It has order key, part key, line part key, and line number, right? So line number is present, and that's a grain of the table. So instead of order key, I'll define line item, right? Again, you can give any synonyms, but the reason I'm adding another table is I want to show you how the relationships work, right? Now, if you can recall the BI tools, again, even if you have not created a semantic model or a view in BI tool, maybe we'll cover it somewhere else in some other class, okay, right? But just for the people, just to save time, that hey, how do you create a semantic model in BI tool? To define a relationship, you select the tables that hey, I want these two tables to be related on some specific column. That's a common column between them, right? That same logic translates to code here. That means if I comes to relationships, I'll write my relationship name, maybe orders to line items. That's my relationship name. I'll define the code that how do I want to relate both these tables. I'll write my orders on the first side that this is first table. I want it to be referencing my second table. These two tables need to be related to each other. How do you create relationships or relatedness inside your warehouses? You write something called references. Okay, and then what column should be used to reference, you define that here. Maybe you want to use something called order key. Okay, this is the logic to create relationships inside your semantic layers inside Snowflake. Logic or fundamentals remain same, that you're relating to tables. The way of representation changes. Okay, similar to this, you can add as many relationships as you want. The next could be fact. What is a fact? Fact mean if there is any row level numerical column that you want to add, you can add that here. If there is any row level calculation, maybe you want to do concatenation of two columns. There is a first name column, there is a last name column. You want to add a hyphen and make a third column. That's a calculated field, calculated column, right? You add all the calculated columns inside the facts function. Okay, maybe I'll try to show you how it works. So maybe I'll take one column from my line item tables. So this could be one table, and I'll take my line item ID, for example. Let's say from here, line item ID. I'll say that I want to concat order key, line items t dot order key. I will concat it by some hyphen and maybe add line item also. Line items dot line item dot line item, right? So what I'm doing in fact is, if I'm creating any new column, let's say the column was concatenation of two columns, I do that here. In BI tools, you add calculations by click and drop or by their proprietary language. For example, in Tableau, they have their proprietary language. In Power BI, they have DAX, but in warehouses, this is also, by the way, one very good pitch of the warehousing tool. They are saying that, hey, why do you need to learn a third language? Just use this. Okay, they're saying just use my SQL language, and their proposition is your analysts already know SQL. They should be upskilled enough that they will be able to create the semantic layer directly inside the warehousing tools. That's why I think few minutes back someone asked, right? Ashwath asked that, hey, who will own the semantic layer? Whoever owns doesn't matter because it's going to be either in YAML or in SQL. Both of them can do it. Okay. Abhishek is asking, Sahil, you are using Snowflake free trial. Can I create semantic layer inside Snowflake Enterprise? Anywhere it's working fine. Okay, you do not need to worry about that. Okay, so this is how you create facts. Again, dimensions means if there is any column you want to indicate, maybe you want to slice and dice your data a lot on customer ID, for example, or customer name, for example, you will write that here. Okay, you can add the formulas, you can concatenate multiple fields, all those things can also be done. Okay, but you add the dimensions means whatever you think that your numbers will be measured against, you add that in dimensions. Okay, maybe for example you want to take customers table. Okay, so I'll write something called customers. Let's say I'm not importing this table, but the concept, or I don't want you to go to technical because that's again it's going to be covered in the class, in the course. Feel free to join that, but here my logic is just to map how the semantic layer is built, and then you will relate that, hey, the logic remains same, right? Let's say you had a customer table, so you will take, let's say, your customer name column from there. So customer name, and you will write that customers table, and you will take, let's say there was a column called CNAME, right? What I'm doing here is, there was a table called customers, there was a column called CNAME column. I wanted to rename that column. I have renamed that here, that this column should be called customer name column inside my customers table. Okay, now you can add few more metadata to each of this point. That metadata is, you can add comments, you can add synonyms, right? I already shown you how do you do that. You write with synonyms to add your synonym. You add comments is equal to key and value to get the comments here, but the logic remains same, right? So everything here, if you see, is drilling down to whatever is possible in the BI tool, but it's just code, right? Metrics. What is a metric? I told you, whenever you want to define any KPI or aggregated number, you define it here. Maybe let's say you want to have sum of sales, right? You will define it here. Maybe you want a sales table should have a column called total sales as a KPI, for example. We'll write that here. Sum of sales. Okay. It should be sum, not sun. Okay. Now, if you see this, this is your semantic layer sitting inside Snowflake. And Snowflake's proposition is, you can do it inside me. Why do you need Power BI? Okay. And if your proposition is, hey, I need Power BI to build reports, Snowflake is saying, why do you need a report? You need an insight, and that I'll already give you, right? They already have a context here. Cortex is analyzed by Snowflake, by the way, and they're saying, why do you need Snowflake BI tool now? So this is the place where a lot of people are saying BI is going to be dead. Okay. Even if that happens, BI is going to shift to DI, let's say decision intelligence, because companies will need to take decisions. Okay. To take decisions, they might not need report, but they will need a semantic model. They will need a semantic layer. Okay. Even when you work in a BA project, if you're working already, you are working in some BA project, for example, majority of your time in a company is spent on a data model. It's not spent on creating a report. Okay, if you are doing that, that means your semantic modeling is bad. If you build a semantic model that is very well defined, all the best practices are followed, it takes a days, maybe 1 or 2 days to build a report on top of it, if everything is working perfectly fine. Again, I'm not talking about, hey, format my color, add some dynamic title. No, I'm talking about base to get your decisions, to get your insights. It's only the semantic layer that matters. And in future, in the day and age of AI also today, it's going to survive. It's going to stay. Okay. So we do have a lot of silos nowadays. Like every company has a lot of tables. What is silo, right? That you will have 2000 tables in your warehouse. Even if that happens, BI is going to be dead. Okay. So we do have a lot of silos nowadays. Like every company has a lot of tables. What is silo, right? That you will have 2000 tables in your warehouse. But if silo, right? That you will have 2000 tables in your warehouse. What is silo, right? That you will have you can't work with silos, right? Because again, if I have just all these table, if I don't have this semantic view layer, if I open my cortex and ask him, hey, give me sales, there could be 10 different table for sale. Which table will my cortex pull, right? If I tell him, give me revenue, revenue could have 10 calculations. Which one it will pick? So any tool cannot work on text to SQL. That means this piece is still relevant for all the AI type of workflows also. Now, where do you create it? Who do you create it? Could be a question. Okay, but it's going to survive. Now, if we define it, whenever you ask Cortex any question, the first thing Cortex do is it just pulls the information from the semantic layer. Okay, I have something in the chat. Hmm, how can you enforce RLS here? So two things यहाँ पे. So whenever I was defining contact, right? When I was creating a semantic layer, sorry, so I just told you that you can only define this, but you can also define roles. If you do something called roles, you create a role. So the step procedure is you create a role. That's first step. Then you add users to that role, and then you add permissions to that role. This is a three-step process. It's almost similar to how do you create row-level securities inside Power BI. Okay, so it remains same. How do you enforce? Yeah, the RLS is maintained by the access control, and this remain constant throughout the Snowflake. By the way, even to control Snowflake's control the access of tables, right? How do you control the access of tables? You get added to some group, maybe in Azure world that's called AD, but in here you call it role, right? Maybe you're given a role of BA analyst. That role already has a tag permissions, and then you add the users to that role. Same thing survives here. In semantic view also, you can add different roles. Each role will have a permission, and each permission will be assigned to a user. That's a three-step procedure that is followed here. Okay. Now, the one more point that I want to highlight is that even if you have a semantic layer, it's not solving the problem of enterprises, because let's say I take any one domain, sales domain. Okay, if you have worked in Power BI also, in maybe if you're not from analytics background, if you have worked in databases also, let's say you have a schema for sales databases, right? You will have a lot of sales data models in your sales domain also, right? Now, companies, now I told you, right, that people need semantic layer, but they do not need the 100 different semantic models or 100 different semantic layer. Anyway, just to clear it out, there is a difference between semantic model and semantic layer. Okay. Semantic model means you will create your connect your report to it. That means if let's say you have a Power BI, your Power BI will be have PBI SM means semantic model that will be connected to report. It can connect to multiple reports, not a concern, but this is the semantic model that it connects to report. When companies say that we need a semantic layer, they mean they need a model or they need semantics that can connect to your BI tool. Could be Tableau, could be Power BI that can connect to your self-serve tools, that can connect to your chatbots. So that's an ecosystem which they say. They whenever you read on the internet that we need a semantic layer, don't think of semantic model, because the biggest problem of semantic model of Power BI is, for example, Power BI will not let you integrate that with Tableau report. Power BI will not let you integrate that with ChatGPT because it's a semantic model. It's not a layer. Right? Nowadays, people are trying to build a semantic layer. That means if like they want it to be integrated with all the other tools that they have in their ecosystem, right? They have ETL tools, they have BI tools, they have chatbots, they have the ERP tools, right? Semantic layer which you have should connect to almost any tool possible. That's the difference. Could be used interchangeably also, but BI tools don't allow you that. You can't do that in current day and state. To build this semantic layer, I already told you the problem is you have, if I pick any one domain, you have n number of models, n number of reports. It's tough to build it. So nowadays, people are very well focusing on something called rationalizations, right? They are trying to reduce the inventory, right? Again, there are different ways to reduce the inventory also because they want to find the common KPIs, right? If I have 100 different models for sales, why do you need that? maybe pick the KPIs, define it in maybe in very one simple model and use it everywhere, right? That's also a pattern that is happening, right? So semantic model is different than semantic layer. When I say that semantic layer is going to survive, it's not that semantic model is going to survive, right? So very big difference. And if you as an analyst or you as an engineer wants a roadmap, don't focus on reporting. Okay, the niche is moving towards semantic layer, semantic modeling, and also integrating the semantic models with all the other tools, the BI tools, the ERPs, the CRMs, and the chatbots and the warehouses, right? Don't focus on only on Power BI or Tableau to create semantic model. Focus on other tools also. We also have a lot of nowadays, because you already realize that, right? That no AI can work on text to SQL. It will fail miserably. People have done the POCs. It doesn't work. Text to SQL doesn't work. You need semantic layer for your AI to work. How do you create semantic layer? Gave you a few options, but nowadays, since it's a very big deal, there are dedicated companies, $1 million companies, whose only purpose is to create a semantic layer. So when I tell you that, hey, you should upskill yourself on semantic modeling, semantic layerings, integration with the other tools, also focus on these dedicated tools to create semantic layers. For example, there is a company called Cube. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about it. They're doing very great in the semantic layer era. Okay. So this is no, wait, what was the company name? Mm, 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 mm. No, I forgot the website. Let me write it here. So Cube, semantic layer should populate. Otherwise, their team hasn't done good CRM, SEO. But I think this is the one. Yes, this is the one. They are like the pioneers who have cracked that. Hey, we won't focus on anything else but the semantics, and they are solving semantics by SQL. They're saying that, hey, do your semantic, create your semantic layer, but only by the SQL. It's a great company, right? If you're trying to learn it, learn what this company is doing and how they're solving it. They have the visualization layer also on top of it. Right? This is one company that's a standalone company just to solve semantics. There is Dreamio also, if you haven't heard, very new company, and they're also trying to solve this. That hey, create semantic layer inside me. Their edge case or their proposition is we are lakehouse first. The lakehouse means you can create a cement. So right now the semantic layers are always created on top of your golden layer. Means you first clean your data and then you build it. They're saying, hey, don't clean the data. Give me unstructured data. Give me non-structured data. Doesn't matter. I will create it. So Dreamio is another company who is propositioning their core value as semantic layer. Right? There is Atlan also. Atlan. Uh, Let me see if I am pronouncing it correctly. It is at Code also. So there are multiple people outside vendors so who are playing in this era now that hey, we will just offer the semantics. Okay. So I'll show you a few examples so that if you want to upskill, you can have a look at these also. Meanwhile, it should have loaded. Yes, it's a context layer, right? Also, by the way, you will keep hearing that different terms. The one term is context layer, one term is knowledge layer. Okay. They are very synonym to each other. There is a core difference also, but semantic layer, knowledge layer, context layer are very similar to each other. Okay. At scored. Give me a second. I think I'm not pronouncing it correctly. But I'll show you at for now. This is the context layer, right? So they're selling the context layer. It's the same thing that you take tables, you define relationships, you define KPIs at a code level, and then you use it across your interfaces, across your consumption layer, right? So if you're learning semantics, don't just learn it only in Power BI, learn it in other tools also, right? Now I'll tell you the problem which exists in current day and age. The problem is right now, all the businesses have their semantics hard coded inside Power BI or Tableau. And Power BI and Tableau do not let them use it outside Power BI and Tableau. Right? Everyone is trying to add this context, add this semantics somewhere that is open source or somewhere that is code. Because how do you create semantic layer in Power BI? It's non-code version, right? And if something is non-code, it's not AI native, it's not AI friendly, right? So the first trend that is happening is companies are trying to build it or trying to convert quote unquote their semantic layer into code artifact so that they can do all the fancy thing with the help of AI. Okay. The second problem which exists in semantics is no company is offering tool agnostic semantic layer or platform agnostic semantic layer. For example, I was telling you here, right, that when you work in a company, you work, let's say, in a sales workspace, you will have 100 different models, right? People are trying to solve it that why do I need 100, right? So if let's say you have 100 model, or maybe you have, let's say, these 6 models, okay, you want to pick one table from here, you want to pick one table from here. Can you do that in today's day and age? Maybe cherry picking the tables from different semantic models and building a new report or getting an answer? The answer is no. So today's day and age, the semantic models cannot talk to other semantic models. That's a big problem. If I want to chat with my data, that means my sales data cannot talk with the marketing data. And typically, when you try to find insights right, in business, the metrics are very related, right? If I am saying that my sales is down or my sales increased, reason could be I did well in marketing, right? Some campaign worked very well. That means I will need to integrate my sales model with my marketing model. But in today's day and age, data models do not talk to each other. This is also one problem that the tools are trying to solve, the platforms are trying to solve. That is, hey, build the, instead of building your asset level workspace level model, build the platform level model, build the platform level semantic layer. That's called ontology also, right? Ontology is a feature that Fabric is introducing. They are saying that, hey, we will let you use different semantic model to talk to each other also. Okay, I have something in chat. How can we, no, this is the previous. What about complex data models? Say 40 tables, creating semantic layer become tedious. No, it's not, Abhishek. The approach which I have shown you is DDL approach. There are multiple approaches to do that. One is your YAML approach. How do you create semantic layer in YAML? If you know what is MDL, you will find it very relatable. But let's say you will write tables here. You will write your relationships here. Relationships. You will write your metrics. You will write your dimensions. No, it should be SLUNS. And in tables, it's a YAML. So you define it like this. Name will be sales. Whoops. Name of second table will be orders. So you define it like this. Name of third table will be line item, for example. Right. So this is, by the way, how you define it when you are working with a very large semantic model, right? Now, when you want to define the relationships, so write from table, maybe a name, order to sales, and inside this you write from table, you write order, you write your table, you write your sales. Oops, you write your, it's not array, by the way, it should not be like this, and you write references, you write the key, order key maybe. So this is how you define the semantic layer. And if this was tedious to you, I was explaining to you because everyone understands SQL. But if someone understands YAML, and this is how you define the scalable, or like you write lesser verbose to get the semantic layer, right? So these languages also, right? Because since the class one, right, I'm telling you guys, the person who know code is going to be very relevant in this age. This was not the case till now. But even YAML, right? What is a YAML? YAML is a replacement of JSON, right? Previously, there was XML. Then XML was bad. There was some like issues in writing that. Then we got JSON. JSON also has issues. You write to start. You need to write the starting in tag, ending tag. It was machine friendly. It was not human friendly. And then we got YAML. YAML was human friendly, right? You can define it very quickly. So whoever understands these languages, SQL, Python, YAML, XML, JSON, is going to be very relevant, right? So this has been my course since the day I started the first class of, hey, you learn language, you don't learn the tools and the clicks because it's not going to be relevant anytime soon. Okay. So yeah, I think we should be good. The purpose of this call is to tell you guys that Semantic layer is a big thing now. Okay, report is not a big thing now. You need to know how do you create a semantic layer, and who creates it. I already told you, could be either DE or DA. Where do you create it? I told you previously there was only one option, that was BI tool, but nowadays they have multiple options, either in ETL tools called DBT, either in warehousing tools like Snowflake, the example which we are seeing right now in our screens, or in Databricks also, or in party companies like this. By the way, if in case you do not know, or if in case you haven't realized yet, there is no standard way to create a semantic layer. Okay, there is no standard format, because for example, SQL is a standard way that every vendor uses, right? Your Snowflake, Databricks, every database, every warehouse, every BI tool follows same SQL, same standards to create the SQL language, right? But as of now, because it's very immature till now, right, there is no standard way to create semantic layer or semantic model, and there are initiatives going on to work in this direction also. If in case you do not know, there is a language called DBML, by the way. Okay, uh let me show you. I integrated this long back in my one of my tool. Yes, database markup language. So I'll show you how it works. So, and nowadays, companies like Databricks, companies like Snowflake, they are also signing a petition that, hey, every vendor should follow same standard practices to create the semantic layer. And that is also YAML way only. I'll post that in Discord. I keep on posting these things on Discord. So maybe I'll post that also in Discord, that there's a standard kind of war going on because some companies do not want to follow that. I'll tell you that story inside Discord. But if I go here, this is the DBML, okay? That this is how you define the semantic layer, and companies are shifting toward a language, a common standard. This is also not standardized. This is also not formatted across the tools, but people are saying, because no one wants to use clicks, right? Then which language should you use? Should you use XML, JSON, YAML, or languages like this? This is DBML, very widely popular, right? But still, it's not standard yet, okay? But yeah, coming to the point that tools could change, could be third party tools, could be BI tools, could be the ETL tools. Roles could change, could either a person of DE will do or a person of DA will do. The concept is still the same, that hey, we need decision, we need to make decision. Decision cannot come from the silos, from the data silos, that is tables. You need to create semantics. And how do you create semantics? That was the purpose of this call. I hope you learned something new. I'll post the notes of this call, of this class, in Discord. If you haven't joined Discord yet, I'll post the link in this chat. By the way, if you haven't joined it, okay, I keep on posting some very interesting topics on Discord. What should I show? For example, there is a dedicated like reading list where I keep on posting whatever I find interesting. This, for example, if in case you do not know, right? Yesterday, day before yesterday, Google posted their results, the quarter two results, okay? And if you see the numbers, right, there is something fishy. The fishy thing is, for the Gemini, there is no percentage growth they have written. They just wrote that absolute numbers. There is a reason for that, because Gemini is not doing very good in the market. So that was the first thing. Again, you can follow this channel to know all these kind of insights. The second insight was 90% of the companies, 90% of the Fortune 500 companies nowadays are using Gemini. Okay. Still, the quarter over quarter growth of Gemini is declining. Okay, we know why, right? Because they integrate the Gemini by default in the tools, right? One more point is, if you read the report, the financial report of Google which they posted, okay, you will find the revenue which GCP is adding to the cloud is now have surpassed the AWS ka revenue. AWS is still a big thing, but this quarter they have dominated, the GCP has dominated the market. The reason is not that they have done very great in cloud services. The reason is because people are using Gemini. The Gemini works on the DPUs and the GPUs, which are hosted on the GCP servers. Okay, very obvious. And this is also one of the great insight, right? That if a company do not own AI pie, Amazon ka there is no very dedicated AI pie. They have something called Q, but it's not growing. So if you don't have AI in your products, eventually you're going to fail, right? Because just saw it yesterday that AWS could they have surpassed already, right? So I keep posting things like this. So feel free to join it. Microsoft also. Yes, one more thing I'll highlight here. when I'm telling you that, hey, the GUI is not future, this I posted few days back that even Microsoft has launched official language, official library that lets you convert Excel, PowerPoint, Word files into Markdown files because they know where the world is going, right? So same thing is happening everywhere. Databricks also, by the way, they launched something called if you haven't heard at STAP, they are saying, hey, don't do OLTP to OLAP, we'll do it automatically, right? They are also valuated at 188 billions. Yes, this was that step. They launched this. Microsoft launched Ontologies Playground. I was telling you, right? There is no concept which lets you play or which lets you have a platform level data model that's possible in ontologies. And because they are trying to make ontologies cool, this is like official GitHub repository for ontologies, right? They let you play with this. So this is also new. So all these kind of things you'll get to know from here, from the Discord channel. So what you can do is, if you want to join it, simply go to the website of Data Discourse, and in the footer there will be icon of Discord, right? I think yes. So on the footer, the third button from the right, it's absolutely free of cost, no charges for that. You can click here and then you can join the Discord for that. This message I saw you post on LinkedIn, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I love rage baiting CEOs on the LinkedIn. It's fun thing to do. Uh, cool. Mm, okay. I think this is what I wanted to cover. I think I'm good with today's content. If you have any other question, guys, post it either right now, post it in Discord. I'll be able to cover it up. Okay. I do have few more minutes. Mm, 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 mm. Thanks. Perfect. Cool. I don't see any other questions, so I think we should be good. Thanks. Thanks, Ashwath. Thanks, Sandeep. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. Thank you. Thanks, Akshat. See you tomorrow, Abhishek. Bye.